Hi, this is Mrs. Mays, and we're going to do some more chemistry today. Sources of error means, why is there error in our measurement? A lot of my students try and tell me, we didn't make any mistakes in our lab. And while that might be true, that does not mean you don't have error, because every measurement has some error. Sometimes it comes from the instrument that you're using. The instrumental error deals with the accuracy level or precision of your instrument. Some digital balances are going to measure things to the 10th of a gram. And then we have an analytical balance, this one that has windows on it. And that analytical balance measures things to the milligram. So we get another decimal place. Which instrument is going to give you better results? Well, it depends on exactly what you need to measure for. Sometimes we don't need all these decimal places, they're just distracting. But if this is not enough for you to see what's happening in your experiment, then you must have more decimal places. And sometimes we just can't get enough. And that's where instrumental error comes in. Another type of error is called human error. This is not the same thing as, oh, I'm human, I made a mistake. No, no, no. If you make a mistake, I expect you to go back and fix it. Mistakes are not errors. Error is the result of you having a limitation as a human being who's not a robot in recording data. Like at the Olympic Games in Rio right now in 2016, they're using a stopwatch to time all of the events. Do you suppose it's this kind of a stopwatch? No way. They're using computerized stopwatches because when humans click the start button, we sometimes make mistakes, right? Like we push it a little bit too late, and then we have mistakes in our measurement. So to keep everything accurate and truly judge who is the fastest swimmer or who's the fastest sprinter, we use a computerized timer that uses light to detect when an event is at the end, when somebody has crossed the finish line. It's much more accurate than letting people push the stopwatch button like we used to. Another source of error comes from just the environment around you. This occurs when uncontrolled environmental conditions affect the experiment. So we do our best to control our environmental conditions. We just can't always do it. For example, we have a lab coming up where light that's coming in from our windows or from our overhead lights is going to interfere with the accuracy of our measurement of the light coming from a reaction. So the amount of light that you see is going to make a difference in your measurement, and that's an environmental error. Another error you might encounter in class is the atmospheric pressure that's caused by our weather pattern on that particular day. So if we're trying to measure the pressure of gases and the weather is really cold and stormy in a low pressure system, then it might change the results compared to if we had done the experiment on a really sunny day that's warm and nice and has high pressure. The fourth source of error that you might have is just called random error. And this one you really don't have any control over. It's just something that happens when chemicals don't behave exactly like we expect them to. For example, if you wanted to make some sodium chloride, you're going to need some sodium atoms to bump into some chlorine atoms, and then they can make sodium chloride. Well, that's all lovely, but how do you get these two to bump into each other with exactly the right amount of energy in exactly the right orientation so that they truly form a bond with one another? Well, it's not always that easy, and because we can't control what individual atoms do, there's such a thing as random error. You'll have to consider all four sources of error when you're writing your conclusion for your lab reports. Don't you dare tell me we didn't make any mistakes, so there's no error, because it's not about making mistakes. If you make mistakes, I expect you to fix it. Error occurs when we make measurements, and I want you to think about how those errors impact your results. All right, we'll practice this together in class. See you soon.